The U.S. government is now buried under $37 trillion in debt, the largest debt any country has ever carried in human history. It's more than what the entire world produced in 1 year just 20 years ago. And here's the part most people never hear. They have no intention of actually paying it back, instead of defaulting, cutting spending, or raising taxes to extreme levels. The plan is far more subtle. A slow, controlled devaluation of the dollar, a deliberate, hidden method of reducing the real value of the debt by quietly draining purchasing power from anyone holding U.S. dollars. There is a number that haunts the corridors of power in Washington, D.C. It's a number so vast, so incomprehensible. It has become a permanent fixture of our national reality. $37 trillion. It's the weight of a promise the United States government can no longer keep. A mountain of debt so high, it casts a shadow over every dollar in your wallet, every dream in your heart, and every future you've planned for. The common story is one of crisis. We're told it's a problem of spending, of taxes, of political squabbles. But that story is a decoy. The real narrative, the one unfolding in plain sight, is far more sophisticated and infinitely more dangerous. This isn't a story of a government on the verge of collapse. This is the story of a government executing the most sophisticated financial escape plan in human history. And the tools they are using to pull it off are things most people believe exist outside their control: Bitcoin and gold. You are about to witness a heist. Not a heist of a bank vault, but a heist of your purchasing power. It is a quiet, legal, and systematic transfer of wealth from anyone who holds dollars to the entity that prints them. The goal? To make a $37 trillion debt disappear. The mechanism: a monetary reset that will rewrite the very definition of value itself. And most terrifying of all, by the time you feel it, it will already be too late. Let's begin with a truth that most people find difficult to grasp. Government debt is not your debt. When you or I take out a loan, we are bound by the laws of financial physics. We must work more, sell assets, or cut spending to repay with real, tangible value. Our credibility is on the line, but a government that controls the world's reserve currency operates in a different dimension. It isn't bound by the same rules. It writes them. Its ultimate power isn't the power to tax or to spend. It is the power to define what a dollar is. And when the numbers become unmanageable, history shows us they don't hesitate to change that definition. They can shrink the yardstick used to measure the debt, making the mountain appear smaller without moving a single stone. This is the essence of a monetary reset. It is not a theory. It is a historical pattern, and we are currently in its final, quiet stages. To understand the future, we must first look into a fractured mirror of the past. The year is 1933. The United States is crippled by the Great Depression. The debt from World War I looms large, and deflation is a silent killer, crushing farmers, businessmen, and families alike. The national mood is one of despair. Enter President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Faced with an impossible situation, he didn't choose austerity. He chose alchemy. With the stroke of a pen via Executive Order 6102, he made it a crime for American citizens to own monetary gold. You were ordered to turn in your gold coins, your gold bars, to the government. In return, you were paid the official price of $20.67 per ounce. Think about that moment. The government, in a time of crisis, demanded the people's most trusted store of value, and most people complied, swapping solid, timeless gold for paper promises. They played by the rules. Then came the betrayal. Once the gold was safely concentrated in government vaults, Roosevelt performed his magic trick. In 1934, he announced the Gold Reserve Act. The official price of gold was no longer $20.67. It was now $35 per ounce, a 69% increase overnight. Let's be very clear about what happened here. The government confiscated an asset at one price and then immediately revalued it on their own books. The gold that was worth $4 billion one day was worth nearly $7 billion the next. They created $3 billion in accounting value out of thin air, a staggering sum at the time. But the real magic was in the debt. The government's obligations were all denominated in dollars. By devaluing the dollar relative to gold, by making each dollar represent less gold, the real burden of that debt shrank dramatically. The debt to GDP ratio, a crushing 40%, began to plummet. Not because the debt was paid, but because the measuring stick had been shortened. The wealth wasn't created. It was transferred. It was transferred from the savers who dutifully turned in their gold for devalued paper to the government's balance sheet. The people were left holding the bag while the government walked away solvent. This is the playbook. It is a proven, ruthless, and effective strategy for debt elimination. And the stage is now set for a modern performance on a scale that would make Roosevelt's jaw drop. Today, the United States carries a debt of $37 trillion. The debt-to-GDP ratio is an astonishing 1.32 higher than at any peacetime point in history. The interest payments on this debt alone are a soul-crushing $1.2 trillion per year, eclipsing the entire defense budget. It is a mathematical impossibility. You cannot tax your way out of this. You cannot grow your way out of this. The numbers do not lie. The path of conventional responsibility is closed. So what remains? The same path that has always remained for empires drowning in their own promises: devaluation. But in our digital, interconnected age, a simple printing press won't do. The chaos would be immediate, the backlash global. They need a more elegant, more believable solution. They need an illusion of strength to mask an act of desperation. And this is where our story takes a shocking turn. Because the architects of this reset aren't hiding in shadows. They are operating in the open, using the very symbols of financial rebellion, Bitcoin and gold, as the pillars of their new system. The trap is not being set in secret. It is being built, piece by piece, right before our eyes. But what happens next will change everything. Because the next phase of this plan involves a digital asset most people still don't understand, and a series of government actions that, on the surface, look like progress. The pieces are now moving into place, and the first move is the most deceptive of all. The digital Trojan horse. The year is 2025, a new administration is in power, and a seemingly revolutionary executive order is signed. The directive establishes a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. The public announcement is filled with the language of the future innovation, national security, and maintaining competitive advantage against China. The media covers it as a bold step into the digital age. Pro-crypto citizens cheer, skeptics scoff, but almost everyone misses the true chilling subtext. This is not about embracing a decentralized future. This is about co-opting it. This is the modern equivalent of Executive Order 6102, but with a digital twist. The US government is not new to Bitcoin. For years, they have been the world's most successful and silent Bitcoin whale through seizures from dark web markets, like Silk Road. From ransomware busts and from other criminal enterprises, the US government has quietly amassed a treasure trove of over 200,000 Bitcoin at current prices. That's a $20 billion portfolio. A significant sum, but a drop in the $37 trillion ocean. But the new strategic reserve isn't about holding what they have, it's about acquisition on a scale that defies imagination. Legislation, like the Bitcoin Act proposed by Senator Cynthia Lummis, openly discusses a target: 1 million Bitcoin. Let that number sink in. 1 million Bitcoin, at a price of $100,000 per coin. That's a $100 billion asset. But here's the critical point. They have no intention of buying it all on the open market. That would be far too expensive and would drive the price to the moon before they've finished accumulating. No, their strategy is far more cunning. They will acquire it through a multi-pronged assault: seizure, ramping up the war on crypto-related crime, turning the justice system into a procurement arm, fines, levying massive penalties against crypto companies and allowing payment in Bitcoin. effectively forcing a transfer of assets. Mining, utilizing the nation's vast, cheap energy resources, perhaps even federal facilities to mine Bitcoin directly, creating it from nothing but electricity. They will do this quietly, systematically, over the next few years. The public will be told it's about law and order, regulation, and energy innovation. The narrative will be perfectly crafted to conceal the true objective, because the goal is not to acquire Bitcoin at $100,000. The goal is to acquire Bitcoin before they revalue it. This is the masterstroke. Imagine the year is 2027. The debt crisis has reached a fever pitch. The political system is gridlocked. The bond market is twitchy. And then the government makes its move. They announce that the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve is fully operational. They hold 1 million Bitcoin, and then they drop the bombshell. For the purposes of the official U.S. government balance sheet, these Bitcoin assets will not be valued at the volatile market price. They will be valued at a new, strategic price of $1 million per Bitcoin. The world stops with that single declaration. An asset they acquired for roughly $120 billion is now worth $1 trillion on their books. They have just created $880 billion in accounting value by simply changing a number. It's the 1934 gold revaluation, but digitized and supercharged. But it doesn't stop with accounting. When the largest, most powerful economic entity on Earth declares that a specific asset is worth 10 times its current market price, the market listens. It has no choice. A cascade begins. If the U.S. Treasury is valuing Bitcoin at $1 million, it sets an implicit floor. Institutional money, afraid of missing out, floods in. The price doesn't jump to $1 million overnight, but it begins a violent upward climb. $300,000, $500,000, $700,000. The government paper gains start to become real-world market gains. And in this dizzying ascent, a sinister parallel process is taking place. If a single Bitcoin is now worth the equivalent of a luxury home, what does that say about the dollar used to buy it? It says the dollar is becoming worthless. The revaluation of Bitcoin upward is the devaluation of the dollar downward. They are two sides of the same coin being flipped by the same hand. Your life savings, denominated in dollars, are silently being evaporated. But Bitcoin is only one pillar of this strategy. It is the flashy, new digital pillar designed for the 21st century to anchor this reset in historical precedent and win over the traditionalists. They need the ancient, timeless pillar. They need gold. And here, the scheme becomes even more audacious. The United States officially holds 8,133 tons of gold. That's roughly 261 million ounces, at a market price of $2,800 per ounce. That's a hoard worth over $730 billion. Yet, if you look at the U.S. Treasury's official balance sheet, this colossal treasure is valued at a quaint, almost charming, $42 per ounce. This isn't a mistake, it's a sleeper asset. It is being held on the books at a price set in 1973, creating the greatest accounting asymmetry in financial history. They are sitting on $730 billion of real value, pretending it's only worth $11 billion. Why? To create the room for the mother of all reevaluations. When the time is right, they will not simply revalue gold to its market price. That would be too modest. They will revalue it to a price that solves their problem. A price like $20,000 per ounce. Do the math. At $20,000 per ounce, the U.S. gold reserve is suddenly worth $5.2 trillion. Combine this with the $1 trillion from the Bitcoin revaluation, and the U.S. government has just conjured $6.2 trillion in new balance sheet assets out of thin air. This is not money earned through productivity. It is not wealth created by innovation. It is value declared by fiat. This new asset base will be used to technically offset the national debt, to create the illusion of solvency, to tell the world, see? We are good for it. But the people who live in the real world, not on a government balance sheet, will experience a different reality entirely. The declaration that gold is worth $20,000 will send a shockwave through the global financial system. The market price will scramble to catch up, and as gold and Bitcoin soar, the dollar in your pocket will be in free fall. Most people never hear the next part, and that's the real danger, because this isn't just an American story. This reset is being coordinated on a global scale, with other powerful nations playing their part. The stage is set for a worldwide financial event that will redraw the map of economic power forever. The global chessboard and your final warning. A heist of this magnitude cannot be pulled off in a vacuum for the US to revalue gold and Bitcoin without causing total geopolitical chaos. It needs, if not explicit cooperation, then at least implicit alignment from other major powers. And the fascinating, terrifying truth is that the rest of the world is not just ready for this, they are preparing for it. For over a decade, a coalition of nations known as BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, has been openly discussing their desire to break free from dollar dominance. They are tired of the US exporting its inflation to their economies. They are tired of being subject to the whims of the Federal Reserve, their solution. A new financial system, potentially backed by a basket of commodities, with gold at its core. And they have been putting their money where their mouth is. Central banks around the world have been buying gold at a pace not seen since the 1950s. In 2022 and 2023, they purchased over 2,000 tons annually. China is the world's largest gold producer and a voracious, secretive buyer. Most analysts believe their official holdings of 2,300 tons are a fraction of their true stockpile, which may be closer to 5,000 or 6,000 tons. Russia has made gold a cornerstone of its national security strategy, aggressively accumulating and moving its physical gold within its borders, beyond the reach of Western sanctions. India has a deep cultural affinity for gold, and its government has been encouraging its citizens to monetize their vast private holdings, effectively mobilizing a national gold reserve. Why this global gold rush? Because every major government is staring at the same mathematical reality as the United States: unpayable debt levels in a fiat currency system. They all see the reset coming. They are not preparing to stop it. They are preparing to win it. When the United States announces its gold revaluation to $20,000 per ounce, it will not be an isolated event. It will be a starting pistol. China, Russia, and the BRICS bloc will not dispute the new price. They will embrace it. Their own gold reserves, accumulated at a fraction of that price, will simultaneously be revalued into the trillions. They will use this newfound wealth to erase their own debt burdens and to back their new proposed currency systems. It will be sold to the global public as a return to sound money, a necessary correction to the excesses of the fiat era. It will be framed as stability, as responsibility. But in reality, it will be the greatest, most coordinated wealth transfer in human history. A silent agreement among powerful nations to burn down the old financial house for the insurance money, while the occupants, the global middle class, are still inside. So what does this look like for you? Let's move from the abstract to the painfully concrete. You are a retiree with $300,000 in a savings account and a bond portfolio. You've played by the rules your whole life. You feel secure. The reset occurs. Over the following 18 months, the real-world inflation rate, not the doctored CPI, explodes to 30%, then 50% annually. The price of groceries doubles. The cost of filling your car's gas tank triples. Your property taxes, tied to nominal home values, skyrocket. But your bond payments are fixed. The interest from your savings account doesn't come close to keeping up. Within 2 years, the purchasing power of your $300,000 nest egg has been gutted. It now buys what $100,000 used to buy. You haven't spent a dime, but you have lost 2/3 of your financial life. You are now poor. This is not a recession. This is a currency collapse. It doesn't happen every few years. It happens once in a lifetime. and it marks the end of one economic era and the brutal beginning of another. The winners and losers in this new era are clear. The winners, the U.S. government and other sovereign nations. Their debt burdens vanish. Politicians, they avoid the hard choices of spending cuts or tax hikes. Early, steadfast holders of Bitcoin and physical gold, their assets preserve and multiply in value. The ultra-wealthy, their wealth is largely held in asset stocks, real estate, commodities that inflate in nominal terms. Debt-free landowners, those with productive land, farms, or resources. The losers, you, if you hold cash or bonds, your wealth is denominated in the very thing being destroyed. Retirees on fixed incomes, pension funds, which are massive holders of now worthless government bonds. The working class, whose wages will never keep pace with hyperinflation. Small businesses, crushed between rising costs and customers with no money. The social fabric will tear. The wealth gap, already a chasm, will become an uncrossable canyon. The American dream, built on the foundation of a stable currency, will be revealed as a lie. The timeline is no longer a distant speculation. We are in the accumulation phase right now. 2025 to 2026 is when the strategic reserves are built. The crisis, the debt ceiling fights, the market volatility, all of it will be used as the justification for the extraordinary measures of 2027. The revaluation is coming. The only variable is your position. The next part might completely change how you see this topic, because knowing the problem is only half the battle. The other half is survival. What you do in the next few months will determine which side of history you stand on when the reset is complete. The survival blueprint, facing a truth this stark, can be paralyzing. The natural reaction is disbelief, then fear, then hopelessness. But I am here to tell you that hopelessness is a luxury you cannot afford. This is not a doomsday cult prophecy. It is a financial weather forecast. And just as you would board up your windows for a hurricane, you can and must fortify your financial life for the storm that is coming. Your mission is simple. Migrate your wealth out of the victim assets and into the survivor assets. You must move from the system that is being deliberately dismantled to the system that is being deliberately built. This is not about getting rich. This is about preserving what you have. It is about survival. Here is your blueprint, a step-by-step guide to navigate the next 24 months. Phase 1. The Great Escape. Your first 30 days. Liquidate dollar-denominated liabilities. This is your first and most urgent move. Get out of bonds. Government bonds, especially long-dated treasuries, are financial suicide. They are a promise to be repaid in a currency that is about to be destroyed. Corporate bonds are only marginally better. Seldom convert them into anything of tangible value. Assess your cash. Cash is safety until it isn't. Holding cash is like holding a melting ice cube. You must reduce your dollar holdings to a strictly operational level enough to cover 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, and not a penny more. Every dollar saved beyond that is a dollar volunteering for the firing squad. Acquire physical gold. This is your foundation. We are not talking about paper gold ETFs, futures contracts, or mining stocks. These are claims on gold, and in a systemic crisis, claims can be broken. You need physical, allocated gold that you hold in your possession or in a secure, non-bank vault. Start with a single ounce if you must build from there. Aim to convert 10-20 of your net worth into this timeless store of value. Gold is the anchor. That will keep you from being swept away. Phase 2. Strategic positioning. Months to -6. Gain exposure to Bitcoin. Understand this clearly. The government is about to anoint Bitcoin as a Tier 1 reserve asset. You need to be positioned before that announcement. If you understand the technology and can secure it properly using a hardware wallet, never leaving it on an exchange, then Bitcoin represents the highest upside digital hard asset. It is volatile, but the US government is about to pour rocket fuel on that volatility. Allocate 5-10 of your portfolio based on your risk tolerance. Invest in real, productive assets. Shift your focus to assets that exist in the real world and generate real value. This is not speculative real estate. This is farmland, timberland, or rental property in stable areas with strong cash flow. These are commodities like oil, copper, and agricultural products. As the dollar falls, the nominal price of these essential things will rise, preserving your purchasing power. International diversification. Do not keep all your assets in one jurisdiction, especially one that is actively devaluing its currency. This is about geopolitical hedging. Open a bank account in a country with strong property rights and fiscal discipline, Switzerland, Singapore, or Norway. Consider holding a portion of your wealth in their currencies. It's an insurance policy against your own government. Phase 3. Building unbreakable resilience. Ongoing. Eliminate personal debt. This seems counterintuitive. Won't inflation make my debt easier to pay? For a government that can print money, yes. For you, no, your income is likely denominated in the same collapsing currency. High-interest consumer debt, credit cards, personal loans will become an anchor around your neck. Pay it off aggressively. For fixed-rate, low-interest mortgage debt, the calculus is different. It may be one of the few debts that inflates away. But the goal is to reduce your monthly obligations and your dependence on the system. Build practical skills and community. When financial systems fail, what matters most is what you can do, not what you own. Learn to grow food, to repair things, to provide medical aid, to generate your own power. These skills become a new form of currency. Forge deep relationships with your neighbors and local community. In a crisis, your network of trusted people will be more valuable than a digital bank balance. Resilience is not just a financial state. It is a human one. Let me be unequivocal. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a historical pattern meeting a mathematical certainty. The U.S. debt is unpayable. Devaluation is the only logical outcome. The policy moves to facilitate that devaluation through asset revaluation are already in motion. The executive orders have been signed, the legislation is being drafted, the global players are positioned. The reset is not a question of if, but when, and all evidence points to the window of 2026 to 2027. You now have a choice. You can dismiss this as alarmism, trust the official narratives, and hope for the best. Or you can see the warning signs for what they are and take decisive, prudent action to protect yourself and your family. This is the great financial reckoning of our age. It will be remembered as the moment the old world of paper promises died, and a new, harder world emerged. You can be a victim of that transition, or you can be a survivor. The clock is ticking. The storm is on the horizon. What you do next will echo for the rest of your life.